All right, the strategic archive for Sunday night, March 1st, 2026, must now record the final hours of the old financial world as the sun sets on the era of unbacked digital debt. While the global population is being told to prepare for a managed reopening of the banking system tomorrow morning, the internal ledger data from the primary settlement nodes proves that the transition to a new programmable currency standard is already being finalized in the dark. John CC is the archive where we look past the televised calm and track the terminal movement of the world's physical resources. Today's data confirms that the weekend of silence was not a pause, but a massive strategic relocation of the world's remaining physical collateral into the hands of a new global administrative authority. The shadow market for silver has officially entered a state of total illiquidity this Sunday afternoon, with private dealers in London and New York reporting that they have received emergency orders to freeze all remaining private inventories for national security purposes. We are receiving verified reports from the shadow exchanges in the East, where the physical premium has now surpassed $75 per ounce, effectively pricing silver as a strategic industrial element rather than a speculative asset. The math of the 2026 reset is reaching its logical apex. The paper derivative was a tool for suppression, and now that the vaults are empty, the tool has been discarded. We are witnessing the final minutes of a world where you could buy the physical truth with a digital lie. And as of this Sunday, that window is welded shut. Gold has reached a reported shadow price of $5,200 in the private tier settlement nodes that are currently bypassing the Western Bank holiday protocols. Internal memos leaked from the G7 Treasury Department suggest that a new international settlement unit will be announced tonight, which will be explicitly backed by a basket of commodities, effectively devaluing the existing digital dollar by over 60%. This is the Sunday night surprise that the archives have been warning about for years, a coordinated economic decapitation of the middle class's purchasing power to save the balance sheets of the global banking elite. The John CC archive is documenting this event in real time, providing the only data-driven map for those who chose to stay physical before the exit doors were locked. Inventory data from the primary transport hubs confirms that the last of the eligible silver inventory has been physically seized from the private vaulting networks under the Economic Emergency Act. This is the moment the distinction between private wealth and state resources has been officially erased, leaving those who trusted the banking system with nothing but digital credits and a failing grid. If you are not in direct physical possession of your metal this Sunday, the data suggests you are now an unsecured participant in a global sovereign default. The only wealth that retains its integrity in the new era is the wealth you can hold in your hand, outside of the programmable surveillance loop that is being activated as we speak. ATM networks remain in a state of total hardware blackout, and we are receiving reports that the physical machines in several major cities are being decommissioned to make way for the new biometric-only settlement terminals. This is the strategic transition from a world of anonymous cash to a world of absolute digital oversight, occurring under the cover of a banking crisis that was mathematically inevitable. Our archive has consistently tracked the depletion of the fiat reserves, and today's data confirms that the old digital dollar has lost its functional link to the real economy. This is why our mission focuses on the vault drains. The physical movement of silver and gold was the only honest indicator of the total lockdown of the legacy financial system. The industrial impact of this Sunday's data is a global force majeure for all high-tech manufacturing contracts, as the physical shortage of silver for circuit-level production has reached a level of terminal scarcity. We are seeing the total cessation of advanced satellite and telecommunications hardware assembly as the state hoards every available ounce of metal for military and administrative continuity. The paper traders in New York thought they could print resources, but the reality of March 2026 has proven that the physical world does not answer to an algorithm. Without the metal, the digital world stops, and that stoppage is now a permanent feature of the new industrial landscape. Capital flight has now entered the phase of total asset sequestration, as the new digital firewalls are preventing the movement of wealth across any international border without a verifiable resource certificate. The data confirms that the global elite moved their holdings into the physical resource sector weeks ago, leaving the masses trapped in a digital ledger that is currently being reset to zero in real time. The John CC archive is documenting this divergence, showing that the decoupling of the world has created a permanent divide between the resource-holding nations and the debt-holding populations. The exit doors were not just locked, they were strategically removed from the architecture of the old world. Options and futures markets for all tangible commodities have been permanently administrative settled at Friday's closing prices, effectively stealing the upside of the revaluation from millions of private investors. This is the ultimate short squeeze in reverse, where the system protects itself by simply deleting the obligations it cannot fulfill. When the vaults are empty, the paper is void, and that is exactly what the Sunday afternoon data is revealing as the central planners prepare for the Monday morning unveiling. The math of the 2026 reset is a brutal lesson in counterparty risk. If you do not have the metal in your hand, you are the victim of the administrative delete button. Geopolitical sources confirm that the BRICS nations have officially launched their gold-backed commodity bridge as of 2 hours ago, creating a parallel financial universe that does not recognize the Western digital credit system. This is the final fracture of the global trade network, where energy and metal will now move exclusively between nations that can provide a physical anchor for their currency. The Western dollar is currently a stranded asset on the international stage, with its purchasing power falling by the hour as the world realizes that it is no longer connected to the reality of the vaults. The John C.C. Archive is recording the death of the UN-backed fiat era and the birth of a new physical standard. The shadow banking sector is now in a state of terminal vaporization, as the collateral chains that supported the trillions in silver and gold shorts have officially snapped. Every paper claim is being assigned a liquidation value that represents a fraction of a penny on the dollar, while the physical metal is being revalued into a new pricing tier that the public will never be allowed to access. This is the mathematical singularity of the 2026 reset, where the infinite digital debt finally hits the wall of finite resource reality. The vaults are officially empty of paper promises and are now being filled with the hard reality of a new physical standard that will define the next century. We are seeing a total censorship of these vault numbers on all centralized digital platforms, as the Global Information Integrity Act is being used to prevent the spread of warehouse depletion data. However, the John C.C. Archive is being updated through encrypted peer-to-peer networks to ensure that the record of this transition remains accessible to the sovereign individual. The rate of currency devaluation in the shadow markets is now exceeding 2% per hour, creating a state of total economic disorientation for those who are still waiting for the digital grid to return to normal. If you are waiting for an official announcement, you are ignoring the data that is already screaming from the logistics logs. The psychological warfare being deployed tonight is focused on global sustainability and the promise of a new universal credit that will solve the inequality of the old system. This is the final deception designed to move the population from a failed debt system into a programmable surveillance system where your ability to buy resources is a permission-based event. Sovereignty requires you to recognize this trap and to ensure that your wealth is anchored in the physical world, where it cannot be tracked, frozen, or deleted by a central committee. The archives of 2026 will be the primary source for understanding how the global population was managed during the transition to the new physical era. The 150-day moving average has effectively moved into a vertical climb that defies all standard technical analysis, representing the total abandonment of the fiat currency units by the world's primary resource holders. There is no longer a chart in the traditional sense. There is only a record of a currency dying in real time against the only things that cannot be printed or manufactured by a central bank. This is the great decoupling, where physical assets finally break free from the paper gravity that has held them down for generations. The data shows that the demand for physical metal at the sovereign level is already 100 times higher than the total available supply. We are entering the final minutes before the Monday morning unveiling, where the world will wait in silence to see the new form of the global monetary standard. Reports from the private security sector indicate that the primary bullion vaults in the G7 are now under a unified global trust command to back the new emergency settlement units. The door to secure your own family's wealth has not just closed, it has been barricaded by the total power of the state to preserve its own existence. Scarcity is the only law that matters this Sunday, and those who did not stay physical are now facing a reality where their life savings have no functional role in the new resource-based economy. The synergy between the energy blackout and the financial freeze is creating a state of nature for the Western financial markets. As the cost of maintaining the digital grid exceeds the actual value of the debt it carries, the system is naturally defaulting to the physical standard of the vaults. The John C.C. Archive has consistently shown that you cannot build a digital empire on a foundation of paper lies, and today that foundation has officially collapsed. We are recording the final data points of the paper regime so that the sovereign individuals of the future can understand the mathematical inevitability of the collapse and the absolute necessity of staying sovereign through the possession of physical resources. Stay physical, stay sovereign, and stay tuned to the John C.C. Archive because the events of the next 12 hours will define human history for the next century. The global market has reset, the paper mask has been torn away, and the physical truth is finally taking its throne in the halls of power and the vaults of the sovereign. Thank you for watching, and remember to always verify the raw warehouse data before you trust the scripted promises of a bankrupt administration. The clock has struck midnight for the old world. And Sunday, March 1st, 2026, is the date the ledger was finally settled in the weight of real physical metal. The final shadow market update for tonight confirms that the IMF has officially suspended the dollar dominance weighting in its internal accounting, effectively ending the dollar's status as the global reserve unit. Every nation is now effectively an island of resources, forced to rely on whatever physical gold and silver it has managed to secure within its own borders. We are seeing the total fragmentation of the global trade system, where only nations with a resource-backed currency are able to participate in the new economy. The data proves that the era of globalism was a debt-fueled hallucination that has finally been corrected by the reality of the vaults. Intellectual honesty requires us to record that the coming Monday morning will likely see a controlled communication blackout as the new system is integrated into the retail banking apps. If your digital devices stop functioning, remember that the physical truth of your assets remains unchanged by the status of the network or the silence of the state. The trend of the 2026 reset is mathematically locked, and no amount of censorship can bring back the physical metal that has already left the Western exchanges. The time for speculation is officially over. The time for direct physical ownership is all that remains for those who wish to survive the transition. The 150 exponential moving average has been replaced by a vertical spike that represents the final, short squeeze of the global banking architecture. The banks that sold what they did not have are now being systematically liquidated, and their assets are being absorbed by the sovereign entities that respect the laws of physical scarcity. The data proves that the world has moved beyond the point of hedging and into a state of total revaluation, where the possession of physical resources is the only metric that defines purchasing power in the new era. Monday morning will not be an opening, it will be a revelation of the new physical reality of the world. In a world of total digital deception and central bank manipulation, the raw, verifiable movement of physical silver and gold is the only beacon of truth that cannot be extinguished. The Monday warning was the alert, the Thursday force majeure was the signal, and the Sunday night reset is the reality of the end. The Strategic Archive has captured every moment of this historic transition, and we will continue to provide the data of the new physical standard as the world rebuilds from the ruins of the paper era. Stay physical, stay sovereign, and watch the John CC Archive as we navigate the first hours of the new economic world.